After Adam and Eve were exiled from the Garden of Eden, humanity began to grow and spread. Their family expanded, but even from within, darkness would soon emerge. Cain, the firstborn, and his younger brother Abel each brought offerings to the Lord. Abel, the keeper of sheep, offered the best from his flock, a sacrifice that was accepted by God. But Cain, a tiller of the ground, brought the fruit of his labor, only to feel the sting of rejection. This moment planted a seed of bitterness in Cain's heart. He couldn't understand why his brother's offering was favored while his was not, and as the bitterness grew, it consumed him. Despite God's warning to master the sin that was crouching at his door, Cain gave in to his anger. In a tragic act of jealousy, Cain lured Abel into a field and took his life. It was the first murder, the first time one human shed the blood of another. The world, still new, was already stained by violence. Cain's act of murder did not stop with him. Though he was punished, marked by God, and destined to wander the earth, the corruption he embodied spread through the generations. His descendants, following in his footsteps, only deepened the darkness. Among them was Lamech, a man who took pride in his violent ways. He declared to his wives that he had killed a man for wounding him, boasting of his vengeance. While Cain sought forgiveness after his crime, Lamech gloried in his cruelty. Lamech's arrogance reflected how far humanity had fallen. What started as one man's jealousy had spiraled into a culture of pride, violence, and self-centeredness. No longer were people seeking the good that God had intended for them. Instead, they defined good and evil for themselves, and the result was chaos. As humanity grew, so too did its corruption. God, who had created the world in love and declared it good, now looked upon it with sorrow. The world had become a place of violence, greed, and moral decay. His heart was filled with grief. Many imagine God's decision to send the flood as one born from anger. But in truth, it was his sorrow for what had become of the world that he loved. It wasn't a quick decision, but one rooted in a desire to preserve what little good remained. God chose to cleanse the earth with water, to wash away the corruption that had taken hold. Yet amidst the darkness, there was one man who stood out, Noah. Unlike the rest of humanity, Noah walked with God. He was not perfect, but he sought to live righteously in a world that had lost its way. God saw this and instructed Noah to build an ark, a massive vessel that would carry him, his family, and pairs of every living creature through the coming storm. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain fell. The floodwaters rose, and everything that once lived on the land was swept away. The earth was cleansed, but it was not destroyed entirely. Noah, his family, and the animals they brought with them were saved. God had given humanity a chance to begin again. When the waters receded, Noah and his family stepped out into a new world. The earth, now cleansed of corruption, seemed ready for a fresh start. God blessed Noah and his sons, and he made a covenant, promising never again to destroy the earth with a flood. This covenant was marked by a rainbow in the sky, a symbol of hope and renewal. It was a reminder that God had not given up on humanity. But even in this new beginning, humanity's flaws remained. Noah, the man chosen by God to carry forward this new chapter, planted a vineyard. And from its grapes he made wine, drank too much, and became drunk. In his drunkenness, something shameful occurred between Noah and his son Ham. The details are unclear, but the event revealed that even after such a great cleansing, humanity's sinful nature still lurked beneath the surface. Noah cursed Ham's descendants, and the cycle of brokenness began again. As Noah's descendants spread across the earth, they grew in number and ambition. But rather than filling the earth as God had commanded, they chose to stay together, united by a common language. With their newfound strength in numbers, they set their sights on something grand, a tower that would reach the heavens. This was more than just a building. It was a symbol of humanity's desire to make a name for themselves, to reach the divine on their own terms. They believed that through their own strength and ingenuity, they could become like gods. But God, in his wisdom, saw the danger. If humanity, in their pride, succeeded in this unity without him, they would only bring about greater destruction. In an act of mercy, he confused their language, causing them to scatter across the earth. The tower was left unfinished, a testament to the limits of human pride. The Tower of Babel became a symbol of what happens when humanity tries to seize autonomy from God and define good and evil on their own terms. And so the world was once again divided, scattered across the earth. Humanity's journey continued, but now fractured, with people speaking different languages and unable to fully understand each other. The dream of unity was shattered, leaving humanity to navigate a divided existence, distant not only from one another, but also from their Creator. But even in the confusion and division, God's presence remained. Despite humanity's repeated failures, from the disobedience of Adam and Eve, to Cain's jealousy and murder, to the pride of Babel, God had not abandoned his creation. Instead, he watched patiently, with both grief and hope, as his people struggled with the consequences of their choices. The question, however, remained, could there ever be true restoration? Could humanity find its way back to the harmony, peace, and closeness with God that had been lost in Eden? For generations, it seemed as though humanity was caught in an endless cycle of rebellion and suffering. Each time people attempted to seize control of their own destiny, defining good and evil on their own terms, the result was the same: brokenness, pain, and alienation. Yet through it all, God's heart remained open, seeking to restore his creation to its original purpose. In the midst of the darkness, there was always a glimmer of hope, a small flicker of light that could never be fully extinguished. God's love for humanity was unwavering, and he began to set the stage for the ultimate rescue, the ultimate restoration. His plan for salvation would soon begin to unfold. It would all start with one man, a man named Abram, later to be known as Abraham. From him, God would build a nation, and from that nation, a promise would come. A promise that would not only restore what was lost in Eden, but would offer humanity a way back into a relationship with their Creator. Through Abraham, a people would rise, and through them, God's mission to rescue and redeem his world would take its first significant steps. God's promise to Abraham was one of hope and future. He promised that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky, and that through them, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. This was the beginning of a plan that stretched far beyond the flood, beyond the Tower of Babel, and beyond the human failings that had marked history thus far. But as with all things, this promise would unfold over centuries. It would require patience, faith, and perseverance, not only from Abraham and his descendants, but from all those who awaited the fulfillment of God's plan. The road ahead was long, filled with trials and moments of doubt, but the promise remained, a promise that one day, God himself would intervene directly to redeem his people. As the world awaited this moment, humanity continued to wrestle with the consequences of its choices. From the children of Abraham, a nation would rise, and from that nation, a savior would come. But that story, the story of salvation, was still many generations away. For now, the people of earth would live in anticipation, trusting that one day, God's plan would come to pass. The lessons of the past, the fall in Eden, the flood, the scattering at Babel, were not forgotten. These were not just stories of failure, but of learning, of the need for humanity to depend on God's wisdom rather than their own. As we look back at these ancient stories, we see ourselves, our own struggles, our own attempts to define good and evil. But we also see the hope that remains, a hope that God's plan for restoration is always at work, even when we cannot see it. And so, with the promise to Abraham, a new chapter began. a chapter that would set the stage for the greatest story ever told, the story of redemption, of forgiveness, and of a world made new once more. But that story is still to come.